Hey goddesses, who wants to make some wild weed pesto with me today? I do. Look at my fingers. I was just outside picking all of my wild weeds for my pesto. So here's the scoop. Our family loves pesto. I mean, we could eat that, a little like Frank's Red Hot Sauce. We put that on everything. And it is such a lovely condiment, if you would call it that, a sauce, to have during the long, cold winter months when there's just nothing in season that has that bright, wonderful taste of summer. So right now, today is the summer solstice. Today is the day, and this season is the season to go out and harvest your greens and make wild weed pesto. So what is wild weed pesto? Why not just pesto? Well, pesto is traditionally made with basil, or if you're my husband and you're from England, you would call it basil. So I'm growing, I think, 18 basil plants on my deck. I've never had success growing basil in my garden. It's just my soil isn't up to snuff, and so I always find that potted basil for me does much better than garden basil. So this is, I think, a 16 cup vessel from a Cuisinart food processor. So you can see I have quite a bit of basil. This was just from me pinching the tops off the basil. And the more you pinch off and harvest your basil, the bushier and better your yields will be. So make sure that you're harvesting as much as you can, really, because you'll get better yields. So this is quite a good amount of basil, but once you blend it, it doesn't really yield that much quantity. So I'm gonna really pack this as full as I can. And so because it wasn't right full to the top, and I'm an all or nothing type of gal, I thought, what do I have outside that I could go and harvest that would just top this up a little bit, because I really want it packed full. So I went out today to see what I had in my yard. Lo and behold, you can always find stinging nettle. So I went and I harvested some stinging nettle today. And usually when I harvest stinging nettle, I'm painstakingly pulling off each little leaf. And I didn't really feel like doing that today. I thought, you know what, most of the nettle I have, it hasn't gone to seed yet, so I just wanted to harvest the top a little bit. So I just pinched off the whole top, and I'm going to use it stem and all. Maybe not, maybe the bottom of the stem is a little bit too big, so I'm going to take that off. But most of them I just harvested the very top portion of the nettle, just pinched it off. That's why my fingers are like this, because I was doing a lot of pinching the tops off of nettle. So I have a good old bag of nettle here. This is stinging nettle, by the way. It is edible. I know that you probably are only familiar with it stinging you and causing problems, but it actually is, in case you didn't know, the most nutritionally amazing herb that we have in the Pacific Northwest. Stinging nettle. Use it for everything. You got a problem? Use stinging nettle. You have energy issues? Stinging nettle. You have libido problems? Stinging nettle. You have prostate issues? Stinging nettle. You have anything, use stinging nettles. So fresh stinging nettles in the summer, dry it as you can. Dry it for winter use as well, for teas and things like that. So fresh whenever you can. Again, the more you harvest, if you have a patch of stinging nettle on your land, the more you harvest it, the more bushy and bigger leaves you will get. Like some of the leaves that I harvested are just so pathetic. They're so skinny and little, like but like this. But if you pinch the tops off and you harvest it more, it will get bushier and bushier, and you'll get bigger, fatter leaves. So work that stinging nettle patch, and it will end up producing bigger leaves for you, which you'll get better bang for your buck. And you might be wondering, if I'm getting stung or not when I'm handling these. I've washed these already and they still have their stinging hairs on them, but it doesn't really bug me. I don't, if you handle the plant really like scared like and barely touch it, it can sting you. But if you really like, I'm the boss, you know, it doesn't sting you. Occasionally it might, but it's not really that bad. In fact, it's good for you. I've done a post on this before, or a YouTube video, so you can look back on my YouTube videos and find all about stinging nettles. So I'm gonna put a little bit of stinging nettles in here because I want this pesto to be the shiznick in nutritional value, okay? So I'm not measuring, I'm just doing what I want. So I also went to my garden today and I harvested some of this. This was not something that I planted. This is something that just grew, that many of you would consider a weed that you would hate, but the leaves are actually super delicious and they are commonly used as a spinach substitute. This is lamb's quarters, aka pig's weed. That's what it's commonly called up here. So pig's weed leaves, or lamb's quarter as I call them, are fantastic little leaves. They taste just like spinach, even better. Honestly, they taste better to me than spinach. Really high in vitamin A and C, really healthy for you. So I'm gonna throw some of my lamb's quarters into here as well. It's gonna be full. Okay. Let me just give you a warning right now that if you're looking for a recipe, I don't do recipes. I'm too like, I just do what I feel like and I taste it and then I go from there. So in here, I've got probably like a good 4 cups of packed greens, okay? Now you add all your other kind of stuff that you add to pesto. A good quality olive oil. This olive oil in particular, I like the taste of, and you can get it at Costco if you want it organically. We have an organic version of this. And I recently saw this in Walmart. It wasn't organic, but it's a nice tasting olive oil. So I like to purchase the organic one if I can from Costco. And I mean, usually for every 2 cups of greens that you have, you would use about half a cup of olive oil. But again, I don't really measure. It's just kind of, I do what I want. Lemon juice, okay? So again, I try to buy this organic, but this is not. So it's just what I have. And I'm just going for it. And then generally you would use, a lot of people use pine nuts in pesto, and that is my favorite, but pine nuts are so expensive and I haven't found them locally anywhere for a long time. So I'm using pecans because that's my next favorite. So I'm going to put in some pecans. I like a pesto that has some good chunks and texture to it. So I'm going to use like a good half a cup or more. Let's try that. Of course, garlic has to go in. So I've pre-chopped a few cloves of garlic. I might even want more in there. And then generally you add Parmesan cheese. I have this from Costco, the Kirkland brand. I'm kind of lazy, so I like that it's shredded already for me. A lot of people will stir this in at the end of their pesto, but I just am too lazy, so I just plop it all in. And this would be like a good cup, maybe even more. So I'm going to start with that, and I might even put a pinch of salt in. So that's what I'm going to do. And then we'll wazz it up. So the difference between pesto and a wild weed pesto is that with a wild weed pesto, you get to do whatever you want. You use your basil, but then you add in the wild weeds that you have available to you outside. So I feel stinging nettle would make a good choice. I feel lamb's quarters would make a good choice. I feel chickweed would make a good choice when it's in its young stages. Sometimes I've harvested chickweed when it's too late in the season and it's really stringy and the strings got all like wrapped up in my, like the stem gets a little bit fibrous and tough as it ages. So make sure you're using like the fresh little, the tops of the plant. That goes true with any wild weed or thing that you harvest. So that's the difference. The difference is that, yes, you still have that wonderful basil flavor in there, but you're adding in those wild weeds, which are incredibly nutritious for you. Incredibly nutritious. So it just takes your pesto to the next level. Okay, I'm gonna whiz this up. I'm gonna taste it. I'm gonna alter it as I feel I need to. And that's it. I will see if I can find a way to include a picture. I don't know if I can. Probably not. I'll see. Of the finished product, or at least follow me on Instagram and Facebook, because I will definitely share some pictures there of the final result. So that's that. Hope you were inspired to get out into your yard and your garden and find the wild weeds that you have available to you, so that you can turn your regular everyday pesto into something extra magical and nutritious. Okay, that's it from me, goddesses. You have a lovely day, and I'll speak to you again. Bye.